My name is Oprah Abraham, and if you'd told me a year ago that the worst night of my life would start in my mother's kitchen, with a cracked plate, burnt pasta, and a sentence that would split something inside me, I wouldn't have believed you. But there I was, fingers trembling around the wooden spoon, trying to keep myself calm while Melissa Abraham stood 3 feet away, arms crossed like she was bracing for a storm she knew she was about to create. She didn't even try to hide the disgust in her voice when she snapped, "You think you're so smart, Oprah? Then go ahead, pay your own bills." Her words hit harder than the plate that slipped from my hand and shattered at my feet. I swear, for a moment, even the air froze. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. I'd heard her insult me before, but this was different. It felt intentional. Sharp. Like she'd been waiting to throw that knife for years. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. My throat locked up, like the universe was warning me not to escalate what was already turning into a disaster. Melissa mistook my silence for defiance. It always happened that way. "What? Cat got your tongue?" she continued, her tone dripping with bitter triumph. "I feed you. I keep a roof over your head. I don't owe you anything else." I could feel my pulse in my ears. Every word she threw made it harder to breathe. The kitchen light flickered above us, just once, but enough to make everything feel off, like the whole house was holding its breath for what I was about to do. "Mom," I finally whispered, but my voice cracked. "Why are you talking to me like this? I've been doing everything you asked. I've been—" "Oh, spare me," she cut in, rolling her eyes. "Spare me the victim speech. You think getting that little job suddenly makes you grown? Try paying the electricity bill, the mortgage, the groceries. Try living 1 month without me, Oprah. Just one." I don't know if it was the tone or the smirk or the way she said little job that pushed me over the edge, but something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in exhaustion. Deep, quiet exhaustion that had been building for months. I felt my knees weaken, my vision blur for a second. I blinked hard. "Not now," I told myself silently. Not in front of her. Without saying a word, I stepped over the broken plate and walked toward my room. Melissa kept shouting behind me, insults, demands, lectures, but her voice grew faint, almost distant. Like someone had stuffed cotton in my ears. I grabbed my backpack from the corner, the same one I used for work, and stuffed in whatever I could reach. A hoodie, my charger, my worn-out sneakers, the cracked journal I'd been avoiding for weeks. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped the zipper twice. When I walked back through the hallway, my mom stared at me like she couldn't believe I was actually leaving. "Oh, really?" she scoffed. "Where do you think you're going?" I didn't answer. If I spoke, I would break. I walked past her. She stepped aside slowly, realizing, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't just bluffing. My chest burned, but I kept my head high until the front door clicked shut behind me, trapping her voice inside the house we no longer shared. The cold air hit me like a slap. I inhaled deeply, trying to steady the tremor in my lungs. I didn't have a plan. I barely had money. I didn't even know where I would sleep. But the weight on my chest didn't disappear when I stepped outside. It got heavier. Like the exhaustion wasn't from the fight, but something else. Something I couldn't name yet. I walked down the street, heart pounding, until the porch light of our house disappeared behind me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, notifications I didn't want to look at. Instead, I stopped under a street lamp, pulled out my banking app, and opened it. I expected to see the small balance I'd been saving for months. I expected struggle, fear, maybe embarrassment. But the moment the numbers loaded, I felt my stomach drop. Because what I saw wasn't small. It wasn't normal. It wasn't possible. Something was in my account that shouldn't have been there. Something that changed everything. For weeks, something had felt off. Small numbers disappearing from my savings. Bills arriving with my name on accounts I never opened. At first, I thought it was a bank glitch. But the moment I saw an electricity bill for a house I'd never lived in, my stomach twisted. I sat on my bed, scrolling through the transactions again and again. My pulse hammered. Someone was using my identity. Someone close. Too close. Then one notification froze me. A withdrawal made from the branch next to my childhood home. I felt my knees weaken. There was only one person who had access to my old documents, my old files, my old life. Melissa. My mother. I didn't want to believe it. No child wants to believe their own mother would steal from them. But denial doesn't erase evidence. The numbers didn't lie. The signatures didn't lie. The accounts traced back didn't lie. She did. With shaking hands, I marched toward her house. Each step felt like carrying a lifetime of betrayal. When she opened the door, she was smiling, that same sweet smile she used whenever she wanted something. "What brings you here, Oprah?" she asked, as if nothing had happened. I held the bills up. "These. And the withdrawals. Mom, why are you using my name? Why are you draining my savings?" She didn't flinch. Not even a flicker of guilt. Instead, she sighed dramatically and said the words that sliced deeper than any lie. "You owe me for raising you." My breath caught. "Owe you? Mom, this is fraud." She rolled her eyes. "Oh please. After everything I sacrificed for you, you think a few dollars matter? You should be grateful I even trusted your name." Gaslighting. Smooth. Practiced. Familiar. She flipped the blame on me like she'd done my whole life. But this time, I didn't crumble. "No," I whispered. "Not anymore. You crossed a line." Melissa smirked, walking back to the kitchen. "You're being dramatic, Oprah. Grow up." I stared at her, realizing something painful. She wasn't sorry, because she didn't think she did anything wrong. I left the house with my chest tight, my mind spinning, trying to breathe through the betrayal. Just as I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A new email. The subject line made my blood run cold. "Urgent. This may destroy your entire future." I opened it, and my vision blurred. Everything was about to get worse. The email was from a law firm, cold, formal, and terrifying. "Ms. Abraham, this is a final notice regarding overdue balances tied to your identity. Legal action may be initiated if unresolved within 7 days." My hands trembled as I scrolled down. Credit cards, loans, utilities, all under my name, none of which I'd opened. Every sentence felt like a punch. I'd been branded as irresponsible for debts I didn't even know existed. I felt my throat tighten. Melissa had used me, not just my name, not just my money, but my future. I wanted to scream, but instead I just sat there in silence. That's what years with her had taught me. Silence was survival. I remembered being 16, hiding in my room while she screamed about groceries and gas bills. How she'd say, "You're lucky to have me. You'd never survive on your own." And I'd believe her. I thought her cruelty was care. Every insult came wrapped as a lesson. Every guilt trip disguised as love. She was always good at control, emotional, financial, psychological. She didn't just want to raise me. She wanted to own me. Now I could see the pattern. When I started getting good grades, she'd tell relatives, "She thinks she's smarter than me." When I got my first job, she'd say, "Don't forget who fed you all these years." Every success I had became a reason for her to remind me that I owed her. And now, even as an adult, she'd found a way to keep me chained, through numbers, debts, and lies. I started piecing everything together. The missing savings. The accounts I never opened. The fake signature that looked eerily like mine. She had been doing this for years, and I'd never noticed, because I trusted her. I contacted the bank. They froze the fraudulent cards but said some charges were already in collections. Collections. That word felt like the sound of a door locking behind me. I spent the next hour calling every number I could, trying to clear my name, to breathe through the panic. Then, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello." My voice cracked. "Ms. Abraham," a deep voice asked. "This is Robert from Lakeview Debt Recovery. We've been trying to reach you." I swallowed hard. "Yes, I just got your letter. I think there's been a mistake." A pause. Then, almost casually, he asked, "Can you confirm the relation between you and Melissa Abraham?" My blood ran cold. Why would a debt collector know my mother's name? Something wasn't adding up, and I was about to find out how deep her betrayal really went. The debt collector's question echoed in my head long after the call ended. Why did he know my mother's name? Why did he sound familiar with her? Something about his tone terrified me more than the debt itself. I drove straight to the precinct, clutching every printed email and screenshot I had. My legs felt weak as I walked inside, like I was betraying someone I loved. Because turning in a stranger is one thing, but turning in your own mother, that tears something primal inside you. A fraud officer, Detective Harris, met me in a small room with buzzing lights and a metal table that felt colder than my own bones. He looked at the papers, his brows tightening. "Someone's using your identity extensively," he said. "These accounts aren't new. Some go back years." Years. That word made my stomach twist. I felt myself shrink into the chair. I didn't want to believe it, I whispered, but the only person who had access to my documents was my mom. He looked up. "Melissa Abraham." My chest tightened. "Yes." He took a slow breath, the kind usually reserved for terrible news. Then he slid another file across the table. "Before you came in, we received a related alert from a financial institution. Apparently, this isn't the first time your identity was used to secure credit." I stared at the file like it was radioactive. "My entire life," I whispered, "I've worked so hard. For everything. I barely have anything to my name, and now even that is gone." Detective Harris leaned forward. "Ms. Abraham, you're a victim. Do not blame yourself." But how could I not? The victim and the daughter were both me. My memory kept replaying past moments, Melissa paying bills in my name just for convenience, insisting she'd fix the online accounts, demanding copies of my ID for safety. Little things that didn't matter then, but now felt like traps I walked into blindfolded. "She's my mother," I said, voice cracking. "How am I supposed to process this?" He softened. "Family fraud is more common than you think. It doesn't make it less painful." I wiped my eyes, angry at the tears but unable to hold them back. I felt like a little girl again, desperate for Melissa's approval, terrified of her disappointment, confused by her cruelty. But this? Stealing my identity? Destroying my financial future? That wasn't disappointment or strict parenting. That was betrayal. Detective Harris opened the file again. "There's something else," he said, tapping a page. "The activity pattern is long-term, consistent, organized." I felt my lungs freeze. "Meaning what?" He looked directly into my eyes. "Oprah, this didn't happen overnight." My whole world tilted. If it didn't happen overnight, then how long had my own mother been planning this? I walked out of the precinct with a stack of documents that felt heavier than bricks. Detective Harris offered to help me dig further, but even with him beside me, my hands trembled the entire drive home. I wasn't scared of the debt. I was scared of what else I would find with my mother's fingerprints on it. We began the investigation the next morning. He connected me with a financial crimes analyst who spoke fast, typed faster, and barely blinked as she pulled data from databases I didn't know existed. She paused only once, when she opened a particular report. Her face changed. She swallowed hard. "Oprah, you might want to sit down." My stomach lurched. "I Saturday." And she turned the monitor toward me. There were debts. Not one. Not 5. Not 10. 23 separate accounts tied to my name. Some maxed out. Some in collections. Some newly opened. All under my identity. My throat tightened painfully. This can't be real. I check my accounts. I'm not reckless. I'm not. "It wasn't you," she said gently. "Someone used your details across multiple states. This is coordinated." Coordinated. Like a business. Like a system. Like something Melissa had practiced. My palms were sweating. I tried to breathe normally, but everything kept spinning. Detective Harris leaned closer. "Oprah, you're not at fault. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They picked credit lines and institutions that don't cross-report." I felt like vomiting. It sounded too knowledgeable, too calculated for a desperate mom mistake. This was methodical. As they printed the stack of documentation for evidence, my mind drifted back to childhood. To the time Melissa borrowed my birthday money for groceries but came home with new shoes. To the time she forced me to sign a family agreement saying I'd contribute to bills once I turned 18, except I was 13 at the time. To the times she guilted me. "You think you're better than me? You think you're smarter than this house?" She always framed dependency as loyalty, and independence as betrayal. The memories stung now more than ever. Because maybe this didn't start with credit cards. Maybe it started the moment she realized I had a future she didn't. At one point, as the paperwork piled higher, I broke. I covered my face with my hands and sobbed, not the soft kind, but the shaking, breathless collapse you can't control. Detective Harris let me cry. He didn't interrupt. He didn't lecture. He just waited until I lifted my head again. I don't know how to survive this, I whispered. I don't even know who she is anymore. He handed me a tissue. You survive one step at a time, he said. And Oprah, you're stronger than you think. I wiped my face, still trembling. But this is huge. This is more than bills. More than debt. He exchanged a look with the analyst. Both of them hesitated. Then Harris said it, slow, careful, like he was afraid of what it meant. Oprah, your name is linked to something bigger. His tone sent ice through my chest. Bigger. Bigger than identity theft. Bigger than 23 accounts. What had my mother dragged me into? The deeper we dug, the more the air around me seemed to tighten. Like every discovery stole a little more oxygen from the room. Detective Harris suggested we search my old room, Melissa's filing cabinets, anywhere she might have left a trail. I didn't want to go back into that house, our last conversation still buzzing like a hornet in my skull, but evidence doesn't magically appear. I had to face it. When I stepped through the front door, the silence felt wrong. Not peaceful. Artificial. Manufactured. Like someone had cleaned in a panic, or like the house itself was pretending nothing ever happened. Harris followed me in with latex gloves, and the fraud analyst joined us shortly after. They told me to take my time. But time doesn't move normally when you're sifting through years of lies. The first cracks in the facade appeared in Melissa's dresser. A stack of unopened envelopes shoved behind old sweaters, letters from credit agencies, some addressed to me, some to her, some to my name with her address. My chest tightened. I recognized the handwriting scrawled on the back of one. Final warning. Inside my old room, I found a showbox under the bed. A box I didn't recognize. A box she must have hidden there after I moved out. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. There were bank slips. Hundreds of them. All with my name as the account holder. And Melissa's signature on the withdrawal lines. For a second, the world blurred. I felt my throat closing. My legs giving way. I sat hard on the edge of the bed, every muscle shaking. Oprah? Harris asked softly. I held up the slips with numb fingers. Look at the dates. Look at them. They went back years. Before college. Before I even had access to some of these institutions. Some dated back to when I was still a minor. She'd been doing this long before I turned 18. Long before she ever yelled, "Pay your own bills." My breath hitched. Tears slipped down before I could stop them. The more I flipped through the papers, the more I realized something horrifying. These weren't accidents. Or desperate moments. Or one-time mistakes. This was a pattern. A blueprint. A system she'd perfected using me as the foundation. What kind of mother does this? I whispered, the words cracking. Harris knelt next to me. Someone who knew exactly what she was doing. The analyst called from the hallway. Oprah, you might want to see this. I stood on shaky legs, wiping my face with my sleeve. She pointed to an email thread printed out, left inside a folder labeled tax. The subject line alone made my heart stop. Application approved, dependent authorization use. Except I wasn't a dependent. Not in the state this email came from. Not at that time. Not legally. She used my social for something else. Something I didn't understand yet. My hands went cold. Everything inside me felt bruised, crushed, unraveling. Melissa wasn't just dipping into my money. She was building something using my identity as raw material. I tried to stay strong. But there's a moment in every storm where the breaking point arrives without apology. Mine hit like a punch to the chest. I broke down, full collapse, knees hitting the carpet as the weight of years of manipulation finally cracked me open. All the guilt. All the denial. All the excuses I'd made for her. Gone. I wasn't protecting her. I was protecting the fantasy of who I wanted her to be. Detective Harris placed a hand on my shoulder. When I finally looked up, red-eyed, he spoke quietly, carefully, like the truth itself might shatter me. Oprah, we might have to file charges against Melissa Abraham. His words didn't echo. They detonated. Like a bomb I'd been running from finally caught up to me. The moment the investigation became real, truly real, my entire family erupted like a swarm that had been waiting for the signal to attack. It started with one phone call from my aunt, then another from an uncle, and by evening my phone felt like it was physically vibrating with anger. Oprah, how dare you call the police on your own mother? You're ungrateful. Melissa raised you alone. You're going to kill her with this stress. Every sentence was a knife disguised as concern. And the worst part? They all spoke with the same voice, the one Melissa had been training them with for years. The voice that painted her a victim and me a burden. When I didn't respond to their messages, the group call started. 12 relatives, all screaming over each other, demanding explanations like I owed them one. I could hear Melissa in the background of one call. Her voice shredded through the speaker. She's lying. She's turning all of you against me. After everything I've sacrificed. Honey, my aunt whispered like fake sugar, your mom is saying you're confused. That you're overreacting. Just drop all this, before you destroy the family. Destroy the family. The phrase kept repeating. Like they all rehearsed it. Like Melissa handed them a script. I pressed leave call and put my phone face down on the table. My hands shook. Every breath felt thin. But I wasn't breaking this time. Detective Harris sat across from me, a stack of documents in front of him. You doing okay? He asked gently. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. Strength sometimes looks like stillness. Quiet. Breathing through the noise instead of shouting back. Because what none of them understood was that the evidence had stopped being about opinions. It wasn't emotional anymore. It wasn't mother versus daughter drama like they wanted to paint it. It was legal. It was documented. It was real. Every letter we found. Every account statement. Every signature that was mine, but not mine. Every withdrawal slip with Melissa's handwriting. Every credit line opened when I was still a minor. It all formed a picture so clear it almost hurt to look at. When the fraud department finalized their report, Detective Harris placed a folder in front of me. Thick. Weighty. Undeniable. Oprah, once this goes through, he said, there's no turning back. I swallowed hard. My family was already tearing into me like I was the villain. Melissa was already screaming at anyone who would listen. My cousins were sending paragraphs of guilt trips and emotional blackmail. But the truth? The truth didn't care about their outrage. Just as Harris stood to leave, my phone buzzed again, this time with a notification I didn't recognize. An official seal glowed on the screen. A legal office. Not local. I opened it. For a moment, the room tilted. My heart thudded once, hard. Then again. Slower. Heavier. Melissa Abraham. Had just been issued a formal legal notice. But it wasn't swirling around me anymore. It was coming for her. I always imagined that if I ever stood face to face with my mother in a room full of officials, lawyers, or judges, I'd crumble. Maybe I'd cry, maybe I'd freeze, maybe the old version of me, the girl who spent years apologizing for breathing, would take over again. But when I stepped into that quiet, echoing courtroom, something inside me felt steady, solid, almost unshakable. Melissa sat across the aisle, shoulders tight, fingers twisting the strap of her purse. For the first time in my life, she didn't look 10 feet tall. She didn't look invincible. She looked small, cornered, and terrified. The moment her eyes met mine, she jolted up. Oprah, baby, please, this isn't you. You don't want to do this, she whispered loudly, like the courtroom wasn't watching every second. I felt 100 memories crash into me, every guilt trip, every manipulation, every I sacrifice everything for you. Every time she made me feel like I was ungrateful for wanting basic respect. Sit down, Melissa, her lawyer murmured. But she didn't. She took a shaky step toward me, voice trembling. You're ruining my life, she whispered, eyes glistening. I only did what I had to. You think I wanted to use your name? You think I enjoyed it? Her voice cracked. And then, it happened. The mask cracked with it. Do you know what it felt like watching you succeed? She choked out. You just grew past me. You acted like you didn't need me anymore. Her jealousy spilled out like something she'd been holding for years. You were supposed to stay close. You were supposed to help me. I raised you. I deserved something back. My throat tightened, but I didn't step back. I didn't let her words shrink me again. Mom, I said softly but firmly, needing love isn't the same as owning someone. She flinched like I'd struck her. I continued, my voice steady even though my chest trembled. You didn't use my identity because you had no choice. You used it because you knew I wouldn't fight back. You counted on me being too scared, too loyal, too broken to say anything." Her tears finally fell. "Oprah, please, I'm your mother. And I'm your daughter," I whispered, "not your escape plan." The room went still. Even the judge paused, like the air had thickened. For a moment neither of us spoke. It was just the truth sitting between us, heavy and overdue. When the judge finally read the findings, fraud confirmed, restitution required, mandatory financial oversight, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief. Not victory. Just release. Melissa slumped in her chair, face buried in her hands. And somewhere in all that noise, the papers shuffling, lawyers murmuring, the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights, I realized something that almost made my knees buckle. For the first time in my entire life, the future in front of me was mine. Untangled. Uncontrolled. Unclaimed by anyone but me. As I stepped out of the courtroom, the sun hit my face, warm, blinding, almost symbolic. And then my phone buzzed with a message. One line. One outcome. One sentence that would change everything about the path I thought I was taking. I froze, staring at the screen. My breath hitched. The next chapter of my life had just begun. I never imagined freedom would feel this quiet. Not empty, just still, like my life finally stopped shaking long enough for me to breathe. Some mornings, I wake up in my little apartment and instinctively brace for yelling, accusations, guilt, or one of Melissa's emotional storms. But instead, the only thing I hear is my soft kettle boiling or the distant hum of traffic outside. Healing doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in tiny, fragile moments, like paying my own rent without panic, cooking dinner without someone criticizing how I cut vegetables, or sitting on my couch without wondering if I'm being judged for resting. You don't realize how much chaos you've adapted to until it's gone, and suddenly the simple act of existing feels shockingly peaceful. There are days when the old guilt tries creeping back. Days I think, maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have protected her more. But then I remember the nights I cried myself to sleep while she drained my accounts. The years she called me ungrateful for needing boundaries. The times she used my achievements as ammunition instead of inspiration. And I remind myself, walking away wasn't betrayal. It was survival. Melissa hasn't changed much. She still sends messages dripping with half apologies and half blame, written like she's trying to rewrite history. I stopped replying. Not out of anger, but because responding reopens a door I've spent my entire life trying to close. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing at all. Now I work, I pay my bills, I make mistakes, and I fix them. My money is mine. My identity is mine. My future is mine. There's a strange power in knowing no one can take those things from me again, not even the woman who once controlled every part of my life. Some nights, I sit by my window and look out at the city lights. I think about the girl I used to be, scared, obedient, desperate to earn a version of love that always came with a price. And then I think about the woman I'm becoming, steady, grounded, finally learning that love shouldn't feel like debt. The world hasn't magically become kinder, and I haven't magically healed. But I'm moving forward, step by step, bill by bill, breath by breath. And for the first time, my life feels like it actually belongs to me. My mother once yelled at me in a moment of fury. If you're so smart, then pay your own bills. And in a way, she got what she wanted. I do pay my own bills now. Every single one. But what she never imagined, what she never prepared for, is that I'd pay them with a life completely free from her control.